In 2011, I met for the first time this man, David Goldstone, a Rotarian living in Perth, Western Australia. It is one of those conversations I have never forgotten and which has had a profound impact on my life. As I met David for coffee, I was asked to meet him because Global Citizen had asked me to lead a campaign to support their efforts and Rotary's efforts to raise millions of dollars for polio eradication. That, having been born long after the last epidemics of polio hit Australia, I knew little about the disease. And so I went up to meet David. He told me, said, "Sit down. Let me tell you a story about polio. Let me tell you a story about my friend John." And over that coffee, David recounted to me how his friend John, one day, decades ago, was walking down the terrace in Sydney when he suddenly collapsed. When he awoke sometime later, he found himself in a hospital bed, paralyzed from the waist down. And the first person he saw standing in front of him was the chief medical officer who told John he would never walk again. And David told me how his friend John responded with those three immortal words, "Yes, I will." Yeah. And over that coffee, David recounted to me how over the following weeks, which turned into months, which turned into years, John slowly but surely proved his doctors wrong and learned to walk again. Now, when he never fully recovered, when his kids, when they were growing up, and his daughter would run up to him and say, "Daddy, Daddy, please lift me up," he would say, "I can't." When his grandkids would run up to him and say, "Granddad, Granddad, please lift me up," he would say, "I can't." But he did go on, and he became a successful businessman, and he joined Rotary, convinced he had to do his part to make sure no one in the world got polio and went through what he did. Yeah, let's give him a round of applause. And when Australia converted from the pound to the dollar, John went to one of the old mints and he collected all the old remaining pennies and he launched a fundraising campaign called Pennies for Polio, which raised over $100,000 in support of polio eradication efforts around the world. An example of what so many Rotarians have done around the world in support of a world free of polio. Now, at the end of that coffee, David paused. He outstretched his hand and he touched mine and he said, "I'm sorry." And I thought, "What do you mean you're sorry?" And at that moment, David stood up and he pulled a chair out from beside him and he put his leg on the chair and he lifted up his trouser leg and he revealed a caliper, which for those in the audience that's had polio know too well, that's what support polio survivors to live and walk. And he said to me, "It wasn't John who collapsed all those years ago. It was me. And I don't need anyone's pity. I just want to get on with the job of eradicating this disease once and for all." Thank you. And he said, "We need innovative new ideas. We need young leaders." And he goes to me, "Because those old blokes over there, they're not like us young fellas." 6 months later, in the beautiful Swan Valley of Western Australia, Global Citizen held its first event, the End of Polio campaign, in support of Rotary's polio eradication efforts. And we convinced Grammy Award winner John Legend to fly all the way to Perth, which for those who don't know, is the most isolated city in the world. Thank you very much, John. 9 months after that, we stood in Central Park, New York, for the first ever Global Citizen Festival with the likes of Neil Young and the Foo Fighters. And in the decades since, we've mobilized over 10 million members to help raise more than $40 billion to impact the lives of 1 billion people around the world. Thank you. But I've never forgotten the personal impact Rotary, and one Rotarian in particular, had on my life. And that's why, just 2 months ago, I was thrilled to join Nick and President Jennifer Jones to travel to the beautiful atoll nation of Kiribati. Kiribati, out there in the Pacific, in our neighborhood, in our family. And it was there that I was reminded once again of the powerful impact of Rotary's work firsthand as I saw the Give Every Child a Future vaccination program, which is helping to protect Pacific communities against rotavirus, cervical cancer, and other diseases. Because it's shocking that in the Pacific today, 1 in 45 children still die before their 5th birthday because they lack access to clean drinking water, to nutrition, to early childhood health care. And that's why in 2021, Jennifer Jones stood on the global citizen stage in Paris on behalf of all of you with the likes of Ed Sheeran and Elton John, although let's be honest, Jennifer's far more cooler of a rock star than those guys. Yeah. And in your name, Jennifer announced $100 million to, in part, provide life-saving vaccines for thousands of children around the world. On behalf of all you, she made this promise. But you know what is even more important than making a promise? It's following through on delivering on that promise. And I'm thrilled to say that of that $100 million, which your president announced, and as part of a special centennial program led by Rotarians here in Australia and New Zealand, $3.9 million was provided to UNICEF to help provide over 11,000 caregivers with the ability to educate, to learn new skills, and which has gone on to vaccinate nearly 10,000 infants against preventable diseases. This means that 82% of all health facilities across 9 countries in the Pacific, including Kiribati, are now providing immunization services with new vaccines to protect more than 100,000 children, thanks to the dedication of Rotarians here and around the world. This is your hard work. It is a promise made, and it's a promise delivered. It's Rotary at its best. It's an example of transparency and accountability for the world. And as Jennifer, Nick, Amanda, and my colleague Joe, as we boarded the plane to fly back from Kiribati, and I looked down at those beautiful islands, I could not help but think back to David, who sadly passed away 7 years ago. And I thought he would be so proud to know that we've literally reduced polio to a mere handful of cases. But he would be even prouder still that Rotary's incredible movement continues to work to save children's lives against so many other diseases. A former leader once said, "No one can do everything, but everyone can do something." Rotary has the power together, not just to raise money, but also to move governments, to move the United Nations, as it did when it convinced the world to launch the polio eradication program. So please, Rotarians, keep engaging your governments, keep engaging your local officials, demand them to prioritize these issues, shout it from the rooftops. Do not give it away. Together, we can achieve the end of polio. We can everywhere ensure children no longer die before their 5th birthday. And with that, in closing, I want to thank all of the Rotarians. I want to acknowledge David's daughter here in the audience. I pay tribute to Rotarians past and present who are working both now and into the future. You are an incredible force for change. Thank you.